volunteer once again for the Milcreek School District with this great show, Fly Into Your Future. Last show, of course, we looked at an airplane, what it is, how does it fly. Next show, we're going to look at the aviation futures. How do you make money in this field? But before we get to that, we're going to talk about the fun of flying, sport aviation. We're going to see some skydiving, hot air ballooning, gliders, aerobatics, home-built aircraft, everything you ever wanted to know about the fun of flying, sport aviation. See you a little bit later. Here's Jay Gerline out hard at work, not far from the Milcreek Mall. Believe it or not, we have an incredible facility in Erie. The biggest facility that repairs gliders east of the Mississippi is just south of the Milcreek Mall. The Gerline family has been doing this for a long time, and they're also active in repairing balloons as well. Expert craftsmen out there. They have a radio control model shop, an amazing museum-like collection, and very interesting people too. They have a lot going on. These are very, very interesting gliders, very high technology, all fiberglass, go fast, they glide far, very high lift to drag ratio we use in the area. What has gone on here is people from all over have had a bad landing for one reason or another, and they will tow their gliders to Erie and have them fixed up. They need very special, meticulous repair of the fiberglass work. We're just taking a look down, look at that. There's the instrument panel. No engine instruments, these are gliders. Ballooning. Ballooning is a wonderful group event. Helpers to lay it out, to inflate it, and to steady it before takeoff. And someone to chase it. You need somebody to drive along underneath you to follow you to where you're going to land. You have to be met. In the balloon, you go where the wind takes you. You have really no opportunity to steer other than figuring out where the winds are at different altitudes. Other than that, you can go as far as you want to go. It's a very interesting sort of thing. You light it up, you heat it up, it's literally hot air. It's not helium, it's not hydrogen, it's simply hot air. The balloon fills up. When it has enough hot air in there, you take off. Takeoff is kind of interesting because it's kind of imperceptible. You don't have any sense of takeoff like you do in a helicopter or an airplane. You just kind of lift off. It's a wonderful feeling. You feel just like you're suspended. I have a totally different feeling of altitude in a balloon than I do from an airplane. So my signals are not the same. You know, when I jumped out after the end of this balloon ride, I jumped out at 5,000 feet. I thought it was only about 2,000 feet above the ground. So it was pretty neat. So you're getting some neat visuals of Erie, where I just took off just south of the Milcreek Mall, pretty close to where WQLN is, and it's where the Gerlines have a beautiful 4,000-foot grass strip. We're coming around looking to see the strip there. Here's the radio control model airport. Some of my friends are looking up at me. They've landed all their airplanes, so it gives us a chance to go by. And we'll finish the scene here with a shot of the silhouette of the balloon. Look how fast we're going. Radio control airplanes, we call it RC, pretty active sport across the United States. We especially have an active chapter here in Erie called the Thermal G RC Club. These airplanes are constructed just like real airplanes. Sometimes they take as long to build as a real airplane too. We have some real expert flyers and builders in the Erie area. It's kind of neat. This is a model of an extra 300 actually, a German aerobatic airplane coming on in for a landing. One of the guys is going to build a model of my airplane. It should be ready to fly this summer. Here we are at the Meadville Air Show. Glider in flight. It's silent flight. It's just the sound of wind and soaring with thermals. You can stay up for hours if you want. You can do long cross countries, go for hundreds of miles. It's just absolutely spectacular. Warbirds, I call them the alphabet airplanes. Here's a P-51, B-29, B-17, A-6 Intruder, T-28, T-34 Mentor, T-6, B-25, B-24. There's all kinds of the alphabet airplanes. Warbirds, boy oh boy, this is kind of a very incredible sport. You usually have to be pretty wealthy to have these airplanes. They take lots of fuel, lots of maintenance. This is the heavy metal of aircraft, pretty active around the United States. It's a real club to it all. Fascinating. Heavy metal though. They may have a lot of horsepower, but they weigh so much that they aren't the fastest things flying. The P-52 I've flown quite a bit, and it's nowhere near like our modern airplanes, although it goes very fast, about 350 knots level speed. Well, sport aviation, you talk about sport aviation, here we are with the most active and diverse aspect of sport aviation, the home builds. You get to build a lot of different kit aircraft these days, probably dozens available, although probably less than a dozen are very successful models. You buy these as a kit and put them together according to directions, or you design your own like I did. A lot of these aircraft use special materials, the new materials, like fiberglass or Kevlar. Very, very interesting these days. The range of them. The only thing happening in aviation really these days is the sport aviation of experimental home-built aircraft, because the commercial aircraft people have virtually gone out of business with all the lawsuits against the manufacturers. There's a range of flight and feel with these aircraft. Some of them are fast, some of them are responsive, some of them are slow. I get a kick out of them. Here's a Stearman. I've done a lot of flying in Stearmans, particularly in Connecticut and then down in Florida. Helped somebody restore one. We had a tremendously good time one winter, putting it all together, painting it up, and then I was privileged to get the first flight, the test flight out of it. Interesting. You got to try these airplanes. Here's a Lancer, a Berkut, Glass Air. These are the cream of the crop. These are the fast airplanes. Now here's something that's really neat. You want to go Mach 1? Here's the BD-10, successor to the BD-5, the single engine jet, single seat jet. You can build this. Go Mach 1. Cost you about $1 million though. Here's some ultralights. Here's the one-of-a-kind GB. It was designed by the 5 Granville brothers in 1931. The R1 model had 800 horsepower, wingspan of 25 feet, and a maximum weight of 3,000 pounds. Jimmy Doolittle flew it in 1932 in Cleveland and won a world speed record at 297 miles per hour. The Heath Baby Bullet. The most beautiful project I've ever seen, and it's being built right here at a grass strip just south of the Milcreek Mall. The woodwork and welding is absolute perfection. It lacks a forward view though. It's a serious project, authentic, handmade, incredible. Rod Gerline, who we're going to talk to in just a moment, is building this. Master craftsman, interesting character, knows a tremendous amount about aviation. Just incredible. I just loved looking at this. I could look at this and take pictures of it forever. Beautiful, beautiful workmanship, perfection, the varnishing, the way things fitting together. Fabulous. Right down to the last detail. Every detail is meticulous. Well, Rod, what kind of plane is this thing?
Well, it's called a Heath Baby Bullet. Designed and built in 1928 originally. It was taken apart in 1932, so there was no existing model of this airplane left. And so I sort of decided that it should be around yet, so went to work building one.
So this is based what, on a photograph or something like that?
It's built a lot from the photographic history of the airplane. Unfortunately, the factory burnt down while they were building it, so any of the sketches and drawings that they did have were lost in the fire. And so there was no real information that way. Most of it did come from photographs.
What kind of materials are used in this plane?
It's all aircraft materials. The fuselage is framed up out of 4130 tubing.
So that's a steel tubing.
Steel tubing. Okay, all the fairings on the fuselage are aircraft spruce and mahogany plywood.
So that's most of the structure is wood. It's like strips of wood. And then they're real nice and shiny, so it looks like you varnished
Yeah,
it.
it's varnished for weather protection, and then it's going to get the fabric covering over the outside of this.
And then when you say fabric, you literally mean a fabric. It's almost like your shirt there.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll stretch that over and...
and fill it with dope, just like a paint.
Mhm.
And that'll fill the weave of the cloth and give it some strength.
But, and so what Rod's referring to is the weave of the cloth is literally the texture of the cloth, and when he says fill it in with the fillers and the paint, you get to make it a real smooth surface, and it's going to look nice and shiny and smooth. And then that fabric is actually sewn onto here, isn't it?
Now, today, most of it is glued.
Oh, it's glued right onto here.
Yeah, it'll be glued onto the edges, and there's hardly, the only stitching that will be on this will be on the wings, on the rib stitching. Everything else is glued today. But they've got such terrific glues that they're certified for that now.
Okay, so most of the airplane, the fabric, what are you going to use, cotton?
This is going to be Dacron.
A Dacron,
Yeah.
which stands up to the weather a little bit better than cotton. And so that's going to be mostly glued on over the fuselage here.
Right.
And then over the wings, since there's the air moves over them a little bit faster, it gets reinforced a little bit, if you will, and a little reinforcement by sewing the fabric right around the ribs. We'll take a closer look at those as we walk around the airplane. And then you paint it and you're all set. How much more work do you think you have to do?
Yeah, I'll be working on it this winter yet. By next spring it should be done.
Where do you get these materials? So you have to buy steel tubes, you have to buy some wood, you got some aluminum sort of stuff here. And then, very similar to my aircraft, which we got to see in the last show, we'll see a little bit more later in the show, this piece, which you feel is really just a temporary piece, he and I have a disagreement about this, is really made out of a carbon fiber.
Yeah, carbon, glass, it's all composite, all the white portion here. Originally that was all aluminum skins, hand formed, and eventually I'd like to replace this composite part with the aluminum.
Yeah, this aircraft is to be literally the same as it was in the 1920s.
1928, yeah.
And therefore they did not have modern materials like Kevlar or graphite. Rod's used this just as a form to get shape it up and get a basic idea, and then plans on going to the original material, metal. Of course, I think this is better.
They're both good.
It's lighter, and but when you're building this style of aircraft, you're looking to be authentic, right down to the last nut and bolt. And one area of authenticity is really the tail, as I'm looking at it right now. Most aircraft have wheels in the tail, and you're just going to keep this.
It's just got the tail skid, yeah.
It's a tail skid, and literally it's just a piece of metal that will skid along the ground. I guess you could plant some corn behind that.
Yeah. It's authentic all the way through on the landing gear, tail skid. There's no brakes on the wheels. The balloon wheels is what they used back on the original. So yeah, it's tried to been duplicated as close as it could be to the original.
Hey, Rod, what kind of instruments are those? They say a bunch of different dials and whistles. What are those things?
Well, it's got the basic instruments, and it's an ignition switch. We got an oil pressure gauge here, the altimeter, the airspeed, cylinder head temperature for both cylinders, and the oil temperature gauge, and then the tachometer. In the center here is the choke.
That sounds pretty simple. And what's that thing up on the top there? It looks
Well,
like a gas tank.
That's the gas tank, and that's why it's all miniature instruments, is with that gas tank in there, there's not very much room behind the panel.
What kind of gas do you use?
It's going to run on 100 octane.
So it's going to use aviation gas?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Now, regarding the ignition for an airplane is a little bit different than a car, isn't it?
Yes.
So in the car we have electronic ignition and points and all that sort of stuff. In an airplane, what's the difference?
Well, this one's, which most all of them are, is magneto. This is different than a lot of airplanes in that it's only got a single magneto. It doesn't have the redundancy of a dual mags. So it's only got the one mag, so it's only got the one position switch here.
I see. A magneto, what that means is as the engine turns, there's a gadget that will actually send an electrical impulse to the spark plug to ignite, so you get the cylinder to bounce up and down. Usually airplane engines have two spark plugs and therefore a backup magneto. In other words, two magnetos for each cylinder, two spark plugs. But you're only using in this aircraft a single ignition.
Single ignition.
Okay. So that's all a Kevlar sort of nose bowl there. And you have a spinner. You don't have a prop on the airplane yet.
That's right.
So now we're going to take all that off and see what the engine looks like. This is a two-cylinder engine, it looks like.
Yep.
That's all you need?
That's all the original had. Unfortunately, I didn't know what I was going to do for an engine, but they started, a company in North Carolina started manufacturing this engine. And it really duplicates the original pretty close in that it's a two-cylinder, horizontal opposed, which the original was. The original had 32 horsepower and this one's 35. And they both produce their horsepower at 3250 RPMs, so really close to being the same layout of engine. And even the overall weight was within 4 pounds.
So that's a two-cylinder engine. How much does it weigh?
About 90 pounds.
About 90 pounds for the engine. And how much horsepower?
35.
35 horsepower.
Yeah, and like I say, the original was same basic engine. It was 32, so we've matched the horsepower pretty close to what the original had. And, by the way, this airplane in '28 won the Cleveland Air Races in the 300 cubic inch displacement class. So
when you say so, this aircraft back in the 20s, when it was made and living in a while, it won the races in Cleveland. That's where they used to have famous air races.
Right. And
would you say 300?
300 cubic inch, and this is only about 70 or 80 cubic inches. So it was, way underpowered compared to its competition. But it was so clean for the time period that it had no trouble doing the job. It was very fast for the horsepower it had. The actual race results, it actually averaged 113 around the pylons.
Where do you expect this to go when you get it all built? Full speed?
Yeah, should do the same. Should do close to what the original did.
What was that again?
Well, it averaged 113 around the pylons, but they actually claimed it would do 140. So we'll get to see this summer maybe.
Okay, now here we are. We're at a wing. The sideways, spanwise elements are called spars, and then the front to back elements that kind of hold those spars together, they're in the direction that the plane goes. They're called ribs. What is a rib?
Well, the rib is going to shape out the wing and actually form the airfoil of the wing. And these are typical ribs that you'll see in most wood wings. The top and bottom sticks are spruce, and those are preformed as far as being soaked in water and then bent over a form so they hold their shape. and then all the other pieces, sticks are cut and fit in between and glued in, and then each joint is capped off with a birch plywood gusset on both sides of the rib.
So that's I always wondered to know what a gusset was. So that
Yeah,
little
these are the
flat
gussets.
piece of wood.
And so each joint that's what keeps that joint from popping apart.
Now, one thing that's so surprising to me, the most surprising thing to me is this almost seems like popsicle sticks, except they're square. But once you start forming them in a shape like this and glue them together and gusseting them up, and every once in a while there's some small nails, aren't there?
This was done without nails.
This is done totally without
Yeah,
nails.
This is done with the glue.
Okay.
And but all them little pieces, if you notice, end up forming an actual truss, just like a bridge.
So this is that word is called truss. We hear about that in terms of bridges.
Right.
I think that's what's on the top of our house too, isn't it?
And it's the same thing.
So
right.
it ends up being extremely strong, very, very strong.
For its weight, yes.
For its weight, very strong. And then the strength is actually conferred by a couple other things, isn't it? Look at these tension wires here.
Now these are to strengthen the wing fore and aft.
Okay, so there's different angles depending
Right.
on different things. So
Okay, this is taking care of the actual lifting force of the wing.
so that's an up-down force.
Right.
That's what the rib is for.
Right. This is taking the load forward and back,
Okay.
and then, well, you won't see it in the camera probably, but then you've got compression struts that go along with these ribs. The ribs aren't strong enough to take care of the load between the two spars.
Mm-hmm.
So you have compression struts at every so
Okay,
many
so that's just like this over here. It's just a
Right.
solid
strut.
it looks like about a 1 inch by 1 inch strut, a piece of wood, and so that's also bracing.
Right.
How about the skin? That kind of holds it all together too, doesn't it?
Sure does. It adds a little strength to it, and this will be covered with fabric right against the rib, top and bottom, and then there'll actually be rib stitching that goes right from the top to the bottom and right around. And it will be every 2.5 inches will be a stitch.
Or it will be a stitch. So a needle is going to poke through and go from the top of the wing all the way through to the bottom of the wing, circled around to come all the way back up again.
Right, and then knotted off at each one, and then gone up to the next one, and the same thing over again.
Okay, now Rod, those are those tires. I really get a kick out of those. Do those have air in them?
Yeah, they're filled with air, and they're such a large diameter because the fields were rough back in 1928 that this was operating out of, so they used a large diameter wheel. The airplane itself has no shock absorbing mechanism other than that tire. So
That's right. So it's a steel tube. Everything's just solid steel.
right,
And so it's only the give and take and the air inside that tire that helps, that bounces.
right.
Where are the brakes?
There are none.
No brakes.
No brakes on.
So what is this, like a Fred Flintstone plane where you stick your feet out, or what?
The tail skid helps. That's supposed to drag you to a stop. You don't want to land downhill.
So all that means is the bottom line, though, is that you're in this aircraft, you're landing on grass, and so that helps you slow down pretty fast.
Right.
And then the skid is going to help you slow down.
It's those are the way they are definitely because it's just a replica. It's not wanting to leave the realism of the time period.
The TNT Rebel 300. After owning a number of other aerobatic airplanes, I wanted to design from scratch and build from scratch and fly the highest performance plane in the world. I'm proud of the TNT Rebel 300. It's made in the USA. Secret of success of the plane is its new high-tech materials like Kevlar, graphite, and Lexan. The engine is totally meticulously balanced and designed, and it has a very special propeller. I do primarily aerobatics, of course, and dedicated most of my flying to aerobatics, which I see as an incredible performance art that merges skill, willpower, and machine, your own as well as the aircraft's. It is 3D precision flight. Doing aerobatics takes a strong aircraft, quick mind, physical conditioning. Typical flight goes from -6 Gs to +8 Gs. Full speed in the Rebel is about 250 miles an hour. Of course, if I dive and go much faster than that, my climb rate is about 4,500 feet per minute. Roll rate is about 1 revolution per second. Very fast roll rate. Snap rolls are tremendously fast. The engine is so smooth that even at full power, it's like sitting with the engine off. Very, very smooth engine. Painted it up some neat colors too. I wish I could have a clear cowling to really show off the engine. The whole skin here is Kevlar. Very strong, very light. Air racing is coming back. This is Formula One air racing. The aircraft has to weigh at least 500 pounds, have less than 200 cubic inch engine, and have less than 66 square feet of wing area. Here is the world record holder, the Nemesis, flown by John Sharp. It set a new world record just last July at 277.56 miles per hour. The previous record was 261 miles per hour. Now let's roll up our sleeves and get into aerobatics a little bit more. Count Oresti, back in the 60s, he's from Spain, invented a hieroglyphics of aerobatic figures so that all nationalities could communicate about our different figures. And we could instantly and easily look at sequences and figure out what they were. Each aerobatic figure has its own degree of difficulty. A simple roll might have a difficulty value of 3 or 4, whereas a hammerhead with a snap going up and an outside snap coming down with a push out at the bottom may have a difficulty value of 30, 35 different points. For aerobatic competition, we fly for the judges' score. And the score is what we need to do well in contests and to win. For example, if we're supposed to fly straight up, we lose a point for every 5 degrees we're off. The maximum score is 10. Unless you score at least a 9 on average, you will never place in the top 3. The hardest thing about competition to me is staying in the box. Corner judges on the ground penalize us if we go outside of the box, about 3,500 feet by 3,500 feet. As plane performance increases, so do the speeds, and so does the ease in getting penalized. Once I master this, I hope to be a serious contender for the United States aerobatic team, the top 5 men and top 5 women, unlimited aerobatic pilots to represent the U.S. at the World Contest every other year. I'm working on it. Solid lines, refer to upright positive G flight. The dashed lines always refer to inverted or negative G flight. Basic Oresti system, it revolutionized our sport. Here are the known sequences for international aerobatic competition for 1993. The 94 sequences are due out just about any day now. They are used all around the world. There are 4 major competition categories: sportsman, intermediate, advanced, and unlimited. As you go through the categories, the demands get higher on skill, on the plane, and most of all on the pilot's body. The G effects for unlimited are incredible. In a typical unlimited flight, I go from -6 Gs to +8 Gs. In normal life, we are at 1 G. At 2 Gs, we weigh twice that. At 8 Gs, we weigh 8 times our regular weight. And our heart has a harder job getting blood flow to our brain. It's possible to black out, but with practice and training, we minimize this problem. Well, we're watching the Pitts S2B. It's the airplane I've given most of my aerobatic instruction in. It's made in Afton, Wyoming, and is the largest selling new airplane in the United States. It is powerful, very responsive, and very exciting. It is beautifully built. The wingspan is about 21 feet. It has 260 horsepower. It weighs about 1,200 pounds empty. Full speed is 185 miles per hour in level flight. It can do any aerobatic figure and is my favorite plane to give lessons in. I have about 3,000 hours of flight time in the Pitts S2B. It's also great to give rides. One of my favorite rides was with a woman who was totally blind. She loved it, as we did everything, including inverted flat spins. She found rolls and loops boring. Beautiful airplane, good fit and finish. It's a wood wings, steel fuselage covered by fabric. Took these shots down in Florida, right around Boca Raton, Florida, not too far from the Everglades. As a matter of fact, in some of the scenes you'll see the Everglades. Well, hold on, put on your seatbelts. Unlimited pilots have perfected tumbling figures over the last few years, and we will ride through a lot of them. The aircraft are high-enders. The Russian Sukhoi, the French Cap, and the German Extra. These aircraft come close to the performance of my plane, except they weigh 200 to 500 pounds more. Here's Patty Wagstaff. She's a three-time national aerobatic champion the last 3 years. She's very active in air shows, very active in competition flying, and very active selling our sport. It's almost like the best kept secret in the world, an incredible sport. I had an opportunity to fly her previous airplane, which is now hanging in the Smithsonian Museum. I flew it when it first got to the United States from Germany, and found out that it needed a little better ailerons and a few other things, and she took my advice and had her plane modified, and she used that airplane to win the U.S. Nationals twice. Now she's using the Extra 300. Here is the Sukhoi, the Russian aircraft. Very interesting airplane. We may get the idea that the Russians are at a disadvantage to us, but when it comes to their military, they're very state-of-the-art. This is the Sukhoi 26. It's made by the same factory that makes the MiGs. Lena Klimovich, excellent pilot, one of the top pilots from Russia. We get to see her flying in the cockpit here, doing a few rolls upside down, and she's going to soon do an outside snap roll, shove that stick forward, and she's doing about a -5G snap roll here. Quite demanding on the pilot, although she seems to me to make it look very easy. This airplane, even though it weighs about 500 pounds more than my airplane, it has a much faster roll rate, very fast roll rate airplane. Here's Linda Myers in the Cap 231 from France. She lives down in Florida, very active in aviation, and so a very interesting character. I've always liked chatting with Linda. I've learned a lot from Linda. This is the yellow airplane, is also another Cap flown by Patrick Paris from France. Here he is doing essentially a vertical Lomshavak. You get an inside view of what it's all about. All these aircraft are, like I said before, are the high-enders. They all have six-cylinder, 540 cubic inch engines with 300 to 330 horsepower. Here's the Extra 300S again. The Extra 300 and the Sukhoi 26 are high-tech airplanes in that their skins are made with Kevlar and graphite fiber, much like my aircraft. The Cap airplanes from France are still a little on the older side. They're using standard wood and fabric skins. So they weigh a little bit more than they need to and don't get quite the performance, although they are such a beautifully balanced aircraft. They fly beautifully, and they please a lot of pilots who are privileged to have a chance to fly them. I haven't flown the single-seat Cap. I have a lot of time in the two-seat Cap 10, which is a training version, and pretty good for a sportsman intermediate and advanced competition. Could never do, of course, this level of competition. Here's a rolling 360. It's kind of an interesting figure. You're doing a 360-degree turn, simultaneously rolling. Doing like a full aileron roll here, so she's getting a pretty fast roll rate. Of course, you can see right away the Sukhoi rolls even faster. Here's a Sukhoi doing essentially a rolling loop, doing a loop and rolling all the way around. Incredible. Here's one of our neat tumbling maneuvers. Get the plane going head over heels. You may think the plane is out of control, but no way. You can stop it in any attitude you want. You can tell me during the figure over my radio what attitude you'd like me to stop, and I can stop the figure anytime I desire. Look at this. Just spiraling on the way up. I don't think you can beat aerobatics. You just get to go all around and over and under and snap roll and try to figure out new figures. That's kind of like the in thing in aerobatics at the top end, is to see what you can figure out. Here's one of the Pitts airplanes, but hyper modified. This is a Pitts S2S, but this chap has put 350 horsepower engine in his Pitts. It weighs about 1,250 pounds, a little on the heavy side, but with that much horsepower, he gets tremendous performance. And actually, this person flying is considered the best air show pilot by his peers in the United States. Skydiving is a real blast. This is relative work where we perform a sequence of formations during the 120-mile-an-hour free fall descent. At this speed, we have incredible control and fly with our arms and legs and do virtually anything we want. Now we're in the middle of canopy relative work. We call it crew. We can jump out the airplane, open our chutes right away, and get to do various formations. That was just a intentional cutaway from a chute. Back to a little more relative work, our breakaway at the end of our skydive. A lot of fun, blasting across the sky about 70 miles an hour, in addition to the 120-mile-an-hour descent. A little air show razzle-dazzle. Here's an intentionally caused malfunction, holding your parachute, but just goes to show you that it opens anyway. How about this? Why not bicycle right onto the ground? Relative work is a lot of fun, a lot of laughs sometimes. Sometimes things go so haywire that you just laugh your brains out coming on down. It's tremendous, a lot of fun. And of course, there are various sports here, and here's one of the skydiving sports, spot landing. It may look like it's hard landing, but these folks are doing their best to land on the center of the target, and will do anything to do that. They'll sacrifice their ankles once in a while. One of the neatest new sports about to become an Olympic event is freestyle, basically air gymnastics. We're going so fast through the air, 120 to maybe even as high as 160, 170 miles an hour. You get to do everything. Now here's something that very few people do. A little tricky, flying on the skateboards, sky surfing. You got to try it. I've never done this just yet. It would certainly be neat to have some air races, wouldn't it? Some of the popular advertisers, one of the soda people and the tennis shoe people have done this. Pretty neat. Our new chutes are getting to be able to go so fast now. Look at the neat kind of swoops that we're able to do. We can have some very dramatic, exciting landings, and even get to tiptoe over the water once in a while. Look at that. Here's some great home video. It's our three-way skydive from the 1992 Erie Air Show. Great weather, great shots, great scenery. Erie downtown, Presque Isle, and just to the north we got to see Canada very well. Here we are getting out. We're ready to go. The crowd is happening. We're ready to jump. I hit the tire on the way out, and so watch my tumbling exit. It also got me laughing pretty hard. 1, 2, 3, go. Whoop. No problem though. Just just relax, let yourself go, and going stable is really quite natural. There they go, right by me. Aha. Well, I finally opened up the chute. The chute ride, of course, is much different than the free fall, much slower motion. Although my chute, with the new materials out these days, a zero porosity fabric, they tend to go pretty fast, and I get to go about 35 miles an hour. Little down shot of the crowd down there. Got my shoe shot in there too. Well, turn around, look at that. I was having a tremendous time. Nobody ever did this before, do the skydiving act at an air show and also do the aerobatics. So I was really loving it. A little right turn right on to final, gonna have a nice landing right into the crowd there. A little disappointing, the crowd was a little small, but boy, the number of aircraft they had there and the people performing were just tremendously good people. I really enjoyed it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this showcase of sport aviation. It's thrilling, interesting, challenging, diverse, and best of all, incredibly fun. Here are some pictures of my favorite aircraft. This first aircraft was my first aerobatic airplane, the Belenka Super Decathlon, 180 horsepower airplane, steel fuselage, fabric covered. Great airplane for sportsmen and intermediate. I learned a lot about aerobatics flying this aircraft for a couple years. I even rented it out at contests to people that knew how to fly it. The next few aircraft are Pitts aircraft, which are made in Afton, Wyoming. The first one, the white one, kind of looks like a hot dog when you see the red out the side and out the front of it, is a two-place, 200 horsepower Pitts. It was a pretty much of a step up for me. I enjoyed it tremendously. But unfortunately, I then went to U.S. Nationals to be a judge one year, and I had to move into Unlimited, so I had the Pitts factory build me this black and brilliant yellow Pitts S1T. Much faster airplane, faster roll rate, unlimited aerobatic airplane. Although it doesn't compete as well these days because the whole world has gone into six-cylinder monoplanes. The S1T here only had a four-cylinder, 200 horsepower engine. Next couple of shots are from Florida in the Pitts S2B that I flew. This is kind of an interesting story here because a young boy from Massachusetts wanted to show his class what he did for the summer. So he and his father came down and they rented two Pittses, and we went out and did a photo mission so he could go back and tell his classmates what he did for his summer vacation. We had a lot of people that came from all over the world to do photo missions like this and to learn aerobatics. Here's my airplane. I took it apart last summer just to do a good inspection. You can see it comes apart very easily. It's those skins. In about an hour and a half, I can take the skins off and get right down to the fuselage, the erector set fuselage. The engine, I wish I didn't have to cover it up. Beautiful. Every part is balanced. If there's two parts the same in the engine, they've been balanced to within a gram of each other. I then went the extra mile and kind of customized the paint job. The exhaust pipes are very special. They took 3 months of R&D to make sure that they helped me out with maximizing my horsepower. There's a neat inverted shot coming up that's over Presque Isle. I did a lot of photos last year where I put a camera on my wingtip and just went out for some flights. Got some beautiful shots. I enjoyed them, and it's my best way to try to share what it's like up in the sky. Pretty neat. I loved it. After that, then we come up to a glider. I used to tow gliders a little bit, and a friend of mine had a glider. I think the wingspan was 72 feet, and we did a tow out of Sugarbush, Vermont. It's actually, the picture shows the first flight of that glider. We just took it out of the box, so to speak. It's an interesting glider. I think it cost about $150,000, and when you spend that much money on a glider, you want to make sure you can make it to your next destination. So you push a button, and an engine will pop out from behind the pilot seat, enough to get you gliding further glider, maybe whatever you need, let's say, another 50 miles, to make sure you get to your intended landing spot. When you have that much money involved, you don't want to take your chances landing out in the fields. Although most gliders have no problem doing that. They're very versatile instruments. The red airplane after that, parked on the lawn, is going to be an extra 300S. It's kind of a neat picture because it's on the 4,000-foot strip where a bunch of my friends live down in Florida, and it's actually a community. The 4,000-foot strip is surrounded by aircraft hangars and houses. So it's although anybody can drive in, it's a very cozy situation, and there are dozens of those across the United States. It's one of the aspects of sport aviation. Those people that just can't sleep without their airplanes, they have a garage for their car and a garage for their airplane, and go out flying anytime they want. A lot of neat picnics too. Good fun, and it was a great place to go practice aerobatics too, because some of the people knew how to do that. Here's the most incredible airplane, the DC-3 on floats. This is incredible. It's like a 50-passenger airplane on floats. Here's a blimp I flew over at an air show in Japan. I had the privilege to fly in an air show over there. Not very many people get to do that. I had about 40,000 people show up. Here's the Sukhoi. That's me sitting in it back when I had a mustache. Interesting airplane. Interesting. Lots of titanium in that airplane. Titanium in Russia is like aluminum here. Here's a picture of a aero car back in the days when we thought everybody was going to have an airplane in their driveway. You can go flying, land, and put the wings up. Look at the brake and the clutch pedal on the floor. Steering wheel too. Neat. Yeah, one of my shots, I had, in addition to the video camera, I had a still camera on my helmet during the air show. Got a couple shots. Here's a demo jump right in downtown Erie, actually. Pretty tight spot, but we all made it in. That was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. Neat shots. Finally, I made it to the cover of Flying Magazine, the world's largest magazine about aviation. They wanted to do an article about the emergency bailouts. Some pilots do wear parachutes for emergency purposes, where we are required to do so in aerobatics, and so they wanted to do an article. This particular cover was the most controversial cover they ever had, because if you look carefully, it looks like there's no pilot in the front seat. They electronically remove the pilot. All photographs on magazines these days are digital, so they could digitally remove the pilot. They said so on the inside of the magazine, but readers didn't notice that, and so they had a tremendous array of complaints because the reader thought that I jumped out and we let this beautiful Stearman crash. We didn't. That was fun that day. About 7 o'clock in the morning and 60 degrees. We were freezing down there in Florida. Well, good luck. See you later. Have fun. Try it. You'll like it.